The automatic doors of Riverside Corporate Plaza slid open with a quiet hiss. Robert stepped inside, his worn brown jacket hanging loosely on his frame. The building's marble floor gleamed under bright lights, making his old work boots look even more out of place. He carried a small paper bag in one hand. Inside was a homemade sandwich and his daughter's favorite cookies from the bakery 3 blocks away. It was Tuesday afternoon, and the lobby was quieter than usual. Robert had taken 2 buses to get here, sitting in the back both times, watching the city roll by through smudged windows. His hands were rough and calloused, the kind that came from years of hard work. Gray stubble covered his jaw and his hair needed a trim. He looked tired, the kind of tired that settles into your bones after 6 decades of living. At the security desk, 2 young guards were chatting and laughing about something on a phone. One of them, a guy in his mid-20s with perfectly gelled hair, noticed Robert first. He elbowed his partner, a slightly shorter guy with a new uniform that still had sharp creases. "Can we help you?" the first guard asked, not quite hiding his smirk. Robert walked up to the desk, setting the paper bag down gently. "Yes, sir. I'm here to see my daughter. She works on the 15th floor." The second guard leaned back in his chair, looking Robert up and down slowly. 15th floor? That's all executive offices and analysts up there. "I know," Robert said quietly. "My daughter's an analyst. It's her birthday today." The first guard picked up a pen, tapping it against the desk. "Name?" "Robert Mitchell. I'm here to see Jennifer Mitchell." "Not your name," the guard said with exaggerated patience, like he was talking to a child. "We need to see ID, multiple forms actually." Robert reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. It was an old leather one, cracked at the corners. He handed over his driver's license. The guard took it between 2 fingers, holding it up to the light like it might be fake. "This address current?" he asked. "Yes, sir." The second guard had started typing something into the computer, but he wasn't looking at the screen. He was watching Robert with a mix of suspicion and amusement. "You know, we get a lot of people coming in here with stories. Lost relatives, job interviews that don't exist, that kind of thing." "I'm just here to bring my daughter lunch," Robert said, his voice still calm. "It's her birthday." The first guard set the license down but didn't return it. "Look, I'm sure you understand. This is a secure building. We have protocols. We can't just let anyone walk in off the street." "I understand," Robert said. "Could you call her extension?" "She's expecting me." That wasn't entirely true. Jennifer wasn't expecting him. Robert wanted it to be a surprise. But right now he just wanted to get past this desk and see his daughter. "We don't make calls for walk-ins," the second guard said flatly. "Company policy." A woman in a sharp business suit walked through the lobby, her heels clicking on the marble. The guards immediately straightened up, smiling and nodding as she passed through security without breaking stride. She had a visitor badge already clipped to her jacket. As soon as she was in the elevator, the guards relaxed again. "Empty your pockets, please," the first guard said to Robert. Robert had already shown his ID, but he didn't argue. He pulled out his wallet again, a few coins, a worn handkerchief, and his phone. It was an old flip phone, scratched and faded. The second guard actually laughed when he saw it. "Dude, that thing belongs in a museum." Robert said nothing. He just stood there, patient, his hands resting loosely at his sides. The first guard pushed the items around on the desk like he was examining evidence. "What's in the bag?" "Lunch for my daughter. We'll need to check it." Robert slid the paper bag across the desk. The guard opened it, looking inside at the wrapped sandwich and the small container of cookies. He wrinkled his nose slightly, then pushed it back. "You got any other ID? Work ID, credit card, something else with your name on it?" "I have a credit card," Robert said, pulling it out. The guard looked at it, then at the driver's license, then back at Robert. "These names match, but I'm still not convinced. You could have borrowed these." An older couple walked in, well-dressed and confident. They nodded at the guards and signed the visitor log without any questions. The guards barely glanced at their IDs before printing out badges. The whole process took maybe 30 seconds. Robert watched this quietly. His jaw tightened just a bit, but his expression stayed calm. "Look," the second guard said, leaning forward on his elbows. "Why don't you just call your daughter from outside? Have her come down and meet you. Then we'll know you're legit." "My phone doesn't have her work number programmed," Robert said. "Could I borrow yours to call her?" The first guard laughed. "Yeah, that's not happening." 20 minutes had passed now. Robert hadn't raised his voice once. He hadn't gotten angry or defensive. He just stood there, waiting, answering every question the same way. But something in his eyes had changed. Not anger exactly, more like disappointment. The kind of disappointment that comes from seeing people at their worst. Behind the security desk, through a half-open door to the break room, another guard had been watching. His name was Dennis, and he'd been working security for almost 30 years. He was older than the two at the desk, with gray hair and reading glasses that he kept on a chain around his neck. Dennis had noticed Robert the moment he walked in. Not because of his worn jacket or his old boots. There was something else. Something about the way Robert stood, the way he kept his hands visible and relaxed, the way he didn't fidget or shift his weight nervously like most people did when confronted by security. Dennis stood up from his chair in the break room and walked slowly toward the desk. He'd been a Marine back in the day, 25 years of service, and he recognized something in Robert that the younger guards couldn't see. "Everything okay out here?" Dennis asked, his voice cutting through the tension. The first guard looked up, a bit startled. "Yeah, Dennis. Just processing a walk-in. Says his daughter works here, but we're just being thorough." Dennis walked around the desk, standing next to the two younger guards. He looked at Robert properly now, really looked at him. His eyes went to Robert's hands first, then to his posture, then to something on Robert's jacket collar. It was small, barely noticeable. A pin, old and worn, with an eagle and anchor. Dennis felt something click in his mind. "Sir," Dennis said to Robert, his tone completely different from the others. "May I see your identification, please?" Robert handed it over without comment. Dennis looked at it carefully, then walked over to the computer. His fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up screens that the younger guards never bothered to check. Historical visitor logs, building records, security notes from years past. His eyes went wide. "Tyler. Brandon. My office. Right now," Dennis said, his voice suddenly cold and hard. The two younger guards looked at each other, confused. "But we were just—" "I said now." Dennis turned back to Robert, and his whole demeanor had changed. "Mr. Mitchell, I sincerely apologize for how you've been treated. Your daughter is being called as we speak. Please have a seat in our comfortable waiting area over there. Can I get you some water or coffee?" Robert gave a small nod. "Water would be nice. Thank you." As the three guards disappeared into the back office, Robert sat down on a leather couch in the corner. He picked up his paper bag, checking to make sure the cookies hadn't gotten crushed, and he waited. Dennis closed the office door behind them with a firm click. Tyler and Brandon stood in the small room, still confused about why their supervisor had pulled them away so suddenly. The office was cramped, with filing cabinets along one wall and a desk covered in security monitors showing different angles of the building. "What's going on?" Tyler asked, trying to sound confident. "We were just doing our job out there." Dennis walked behind his desk but didn't sit down. He crossed his arms and looked at both of them for a long moment. The kind of look that made you feel like you were back in school, standing outside the principal's office. "Your job," Dennis said slowly, "is to provide security and assist visitors, not to humiliate people." Brandon shifted his weight. "We weren't humiliating anyone. That guy looked sketchy. You always tell us to be careful about who we let in." "Sketchy?" Dennis repeated. "What made him sketchy? His old jacket? His work boots? The fact that he's not wearing a $1,000 suit?" The two younger guards looked at each other. Neither of them had a good answer. Dennis turned to his computer and started typing. "Come here, both of you. I want to show you something." They moved around the desk, standing behind him as he pulled up files on the screen. The first thing that appeared was a visitor log from 5 years ago. Robert Mitchell's name was highlighted multiple times across several months. 5 years ago, Dennis said, Robert Mitchell visited this building 17 times. Every visit was logged properly. Never caused a problem. Never made a fuss. You know why he stopped coming? Neither guard answered. Because his daughter got promoted to a position where she could work from home sometimes. He didn't need to visit as often. Dennis clicked to another screen. But here's what you don't know. A document filled the screen. It was marked as a security assessment report, dated from that same time period. The name at the bottom of the 40-page document read, Robert Mitchell, Security Consultant, former Navy SEAL Commander. Brandon's face went pale. Wait, what? Dennis scrolled through the report. 5 years ago, Robert Mitchell was visiting his daughter when he noticed problems with our security setup. Camera blind spots, Weak points in our access control. Issues with our emergency protocols. He could have just walked away. Instead, he spent 3 weeks writing this report and submitted it to building management. For free. Tyler leaned closer to the screen, reading the detailed analysis. He did all this. Every word, Dennis said. He clicked to another window, pulling up a news article from 15 years earlier. The headline read, Navy SEAL Team Rescues Hostages in Daring Night Operation. Below it was a photo of several men in military dress uniforms. One of them was clearly a younger Robert Mitchell, his chest covered in ribbons and medals. That man sitting in our lobby, Dennis continued, his voice hard, served 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan. He led teams that rescued over 40 American soldiers and civilians. He received the Navy Cross. Do you even know what that is? Brandon shook his head slowly. It's the 2nd highest military decoration for valor, second only to the Medal of Honor. Dennis pulled up another document. 2 silver stars, 4 bronze stars with valor, Purple Heart. He got shot twice, saving other people's lives. And after he retired, he spent 10 years training special operations forces, teaching them how to stay alive. The room felt smaller now. Tyler couldn't seem to look away from the screen. We didn't know. That's exactly the problem, Dennis said, turning to face them. You didn't know. You didn't ask. You just looked at him and decided he wasn't worth your respect. He pulled up security camera footage from earlier, showing Robert standing at their desk. The timestamp showed how long he'd been there. 23 minutes. The footage showed the 2 guards laughing, barely looking at his ID, making him empty his pockets multiple times. Watch this, Dennis said, pointing at the screen. A well-dressed couple walked through security. The timestamp showed they were processed in 32 seconds. You see that? 30 seconds for them. 23 minutes for Robert Mitchell. What's the difference? Brandon swallowed hard. The way they looked. Exactly. Dennis stopped the footage. You judged him. You assumed he was nobody, some homeless person trying to sneak in, some troublemaker. You made him stand there while you made jokes about his phone, his clothes, everything. Tyler's voice was quiet now. I didn't mean to what? Disrespect a decorated war hero? Humiliate a man who's done more for this country than both of you combined? Dennis shook his head. That man knows more about security than I'll ever know. He can probably tell you the exact position of every camera in this lobby. He probably noticed 3 different ways someone could breach our perimeter within 30 seconds of walking in. And he didn't say a word about it because he's not that kind of person. He pulled up one more document. It was an email from the building's security director from 5 years ago. It praised Robert Mitchell's voluntary security assessment and recommended that if he was ever interested in consulting work, they should hire him immediately. After he submitted that report, Dennis said, the building management offered him a consulting position. Good money. He turned it down. Said he was retired and just wanted to spend time with his daughter. That's the kind of man he is. Brandon looked like he might be sick. What do we do now? Now? Dennis said. Now you're going to go back out there and apologize. A real apology, not some half-hearted sorry if we offended you garbage. You're going to own what you did. Tyler nodded slowly. Okay, yeah, we'll apologize. And then, Dennis continued, you're going to learn from this. I've been doing security work for 30 years. You know what I've learned? The people who demand respect usually don't deserve it. The people who've earned it never ask for it. They don't need to. He stood up and walked to the door, then turned back. Robert Mitchell could have made your lives very difficult today. He could have called management. Could have made a complaint. Could have mentioned who he is and gotten both of you written up or fired. But he didn't, you know why? Neither guard answered. Because men like him don't need to prove themselves to people like you. They already know who they are. The question is, do you know who you are? Are you the kind of security guards who judge people by their shoes? Or are you going to be professionals? The office was silent for a moment. Through the door, they could hear the distant sound of the elevator dinging, the quiet conversations of people passing through the lobby. I want both of you to think about something, Dennis said. Every person who walks through that door has a story. They've lived a whole life you know nothing about. They've had victories and losses, joys and sorrows, successes and struggles. Some of them have done incredible things. Some of them are barely holding on. And every single one of them deserves to be treated with basic dignity and respect. That's not just good customer service. That's being a decent human being. Tyler's voice cracked slightly. Yes, sir. Come on, Dennis said, opening the door. His daughter's probably on her way down by now. Let's go make this right. They walked back into the lobby. Robert was still sitting on the leather couch, the paper bag with lunch resting beside him. He was looking out the window at the street beyond, watching people walk by. He looked tired and sad but not angry, just disappointed in a way that made it worse somehow. Dennis approached him first. "Mr. Mitchell, your daughter just called down. She'll be here in just a moment." Robert nodded. "Thank you." Tyler and Brandon stood a few feet away, neither of them quite sure how to start. Finally, Tyler stepped forward. His confident swagger from earlier was completely gone. "Mr. Mitchell," he began, his voice sincere for the first time that afternoon. "Sir, we owe you an apology." Robert looked up at them, his weathered face calm and patient. He didn't say anything. He just waited. "We were wrong," Brandon added. "The way we treated you was unprofessional and disrespectful. We're sorry." The elevator dinged. The doors opened, and a young woman in business attire rushed out, looking around the lobby with concern. When she saw Robert, her face flooded with relief. "Dad!" she called out, hurrying toward him. Robert stood up, a genuine smile finally crossing his face. The kind of smile that made him look younger, lighter. He opened his arms and his daughter hugged him tightly. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," he said softly. And in that moment, watching a father embrace his daughter, the two young guards understood exactly what they'd almost ruined. Jennifer pulled back from the hug, her hand still on her father's shoulders. Her eyes were scanning his face with concern, the way daughters do when they know something's wrong. "Dad, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" She glanced at the security desk, then back at him. "They said there was some kind of issue." Robert picked up the paper bag and held it up with a small smile. "Brought you birthday lunch. Made your favorite sandwich, turkey with that cranberry spread you like." Her expression softened, but the concern didn't leave her eyes. "You took 2 buses to bring me lunch?" "It's your birthday," he said simply, like that explained everything. And in a way, it did. Jennifer looked over at the security desk again. Tyler and Brandon were standing there, looking uncomfortable. Dennis was watching from a few feet away, his arms crossed. Something had definitely happened. "Dad," she said quietly, "what's going on? Why are they all looking at you like that?" "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just a misunderstanding." Robert's voice was calm, but Jennifer knew her father. She'd grown up watching him diffuse tense situations with that same steady tone. She also knew when he was protecting her from something. She turned to face the security desk fully. "What happened?" Tyler stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Ms. Mitchell, there was a delay in processing your father's visit. We apologize for any inconvenience." "A delay?" Jennifer's voice had an edge to it now. She was small, maybe 5'3", but something in her stance made her seem taller. "How long of a delay?" Brandon glanced at the clock. "About 25 minutes, 25 minutes." Jennifer looked at her father, then back at the guards. "It takes 30 seconds to process visitors. I've seen it happen dozens of times. What made my father's visit take 25 minutes? The lobby had gotten quieter. A few people who were passing through had slowed down, sensing the tension. Dennis walked over, positioning himself between the guards and Jennifer. "Ms. Mitchell," Dennis said carefully, "your father was very patient with a situation that shouldn't have happened. We've addressed it internally and we're making sure it won't happen again." Jennifer studied Dennis's face. She'd seen him around for years, always professional, always courteous. If he was involved, it meant something serious had occurred. "Dad," she said, turning back to Robert, "tell me the truth. What did they do?" Robert sighed. He never could lie to his daughter. They were doing their job. Being thorough. "It's fine. Being thorough doesn't take 25 minutes. Jennifer's voice was getting louder now. Other people in the lobby were definitely watching. "Did they question whether you had a right to be here? Did they treat you like you didn't belong?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Jennifer's face flushed. She turned back to the guards, her professional composure cracking. "Do you know who my father is?" "Jennifer," Robert said quietly, putting a hand on her arm. "It's okay." "No, Dad, it's not okay." She pulled away gently, facing Tyler and Brandon directly. "My father is the most humble person I know. He would never tell you about himself. He'd stand here for an hour being disrespected and never say a word because that's who he is. But I'm not like him." Tyler looked down at his feet. Brandon's face had gone red. My dad served this country for 26 years, Jennifer continued, her voice shaking slightly. He's been shot at. He's been injured saving other people. He's seen things that would break most people, and he never complains about any of it. Never asks for special treatment. Never wants recognition. A small crowd had gathered now. People waiting for elevators, employees passing through, all of them listening. And you know what he did after he retired? Jennifer's eyes were bright with tears now, though her voice stayed strong. He could have taken high-paying security jobs. Companies offered him six-figure salaries. But instead, he volunteered at the VA hospital. He helped other veterans deal with their trauma. He sat with them, listened to them, helped them fill out paperwork for benefits they'd earned. Robert stood quietly beside her, looking uncomfortable with the attention, but not stopping her. He knew she needed to say this. When I was 15, Jennifer said, her voice softer now, I had a math teacher who told me I wasn't smart enough for advanced classes. Said girls weren't good at that kind of thinking. My dad spent every evening for 3 months teaching me himself. He learned calculus from library books just so he could help me. I'm an analyst now because of him. I work on the 15th floor of this building because my father believed in me when other people didn't. She wiped at her eyes quickly, trying to maintain her composure. So when you made him stand at that desk for 25 minutes, when you questioned whether his ID was real, when you treated him like he was nobody, you weren't just disrespecting some random old man. You were disrespecting the best person I know. The lobby was completely silent now. Even the elevator music seemed to have stopped. Dennis stepped forward again. Ms. Mitchell, I want you to know that Tyler and Brandon have apologized to your father, and there will be additional consequences. This isn't how we train our security staff. Jennifer looked at her father, who nodded slightly. She took a deep breath, trying to calm down. I'm sorry, Tyler said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm truly sorry. To both of you. Brandon nodded. We were wrong. Completely wrong. Jennifer didn't respond to them. She just turned back to her father and took his hand. Come on, Dad, let's go upstairs. We can eat lunch in the break room. Actually, Dennis said, why don't you use the executive conference room on the second floor? It's empty right now and it has a nice view. Robert finally spoke up. That's not necessary, I insist, Dennis said firmly. It's the least we can do. As Robert and Jennifer walked toward the elevator, people moved out of their way respectfully. A woman in her 50s wearing a business suit with a name tag that said Regional Manager approached them. Excuse me, she said gently. I couldn't help but overhear. I'm Victoria Chen, Regional Manager for this building. Mr. Mitchell, I want to apologize on behalf of our entire security team. This is unacceptable, Robert nodded. I appreciate that. I'd also like to extend an invitation, Victoria continued. We're always looking for experienced security consultants to help train our staff. Would you be interested in speaking to our team? We'd pay you for your time, of course. That's kind of you, Robert said, but I'm retired. I understand. But if you ever change your mind, please let me know. She handed him a business card. And Mr. Mitchell, thank you for your service. The elevator doors opened and Robert and Jennifer stepped inside. As the doors began to close, Jennifer leaned against her father's shoulder. I'm sorry that happened to you, Dad. It's all right, sweetheart. People make mistakes. You're too forgiving sometimes. Maybe, Robert said with a slight smile, but being angry doesn't change anything. Besides, those two young men learned something today. That's worth more than holding a grudge. Jennifer shook her head, smiling despite herself. You're impossible, you know that? So you keep telling me. The elevator climbed higher, carrying them away from the lobby and its tension. Behind them, Tyler and Brandon stood at the security desk, watching the floor numbers light up on the display. We really messed up, Brandon said quietly. Tyler nodded. Yeah, we did. Dennis stood beside them, his expression still serious. You know what the worst part is? This happens all the time. Maybe not here, maybe not to someone like Robert Mitchell, but every day people judge others based on appearances. They decide someone's worth before knowing anything about them. How do we fix it? Tyler asked. You start by remembering this feeling, Dennis said. That sick feeling in your stomach right now. That shame. You remember it every time someone walks through those doors. And you treat every single person like they might be Robert Mitchell. Because the truth is, everyone has a story. Everyone deserves respect. He walked back to his office, leaving the two young guards alone with their thoughts. Up on the second floor, Robert and Jennifer sat in the executive conference room. The view overlooked the city, buildings stretching out toward the horizon. Robert unwrapped the sandwich carefully, breaking it in half and handing one piece to his daughter. "Thanks for standing up for me," he said. Jennifer smiled. "Always, Dad, always." They ate lunch together, talking about her work, his garden, the new book he was reading. The incident downstairs faded into the background, becoming just another story. Another moment in the quiet life of a man who'd seen enough drama for one lifetime. But downstairs, in that marble lobby, something had changed. Tyler and Brandon would never look at another visitor the same way again. And that, Robert would have said if anyone asked, was worth the 25 minutes of frustration. 3 days had passed since the incident in the lobby. Tyler couldn't stop thinking about it. He'd barely slept that first night, replaying the whole thing in his mind. The way he'd smirked at Robert's old phone. The jokes he'd made with Brandon. The 25 minutes they'd made an old man wait just because he didn't look important enough. Thursday morning, Tyler arrived at work 30 minutes early. He found Dennis in the break room pouring coffee from the ancient machine that always made it taste slightly burned. "Can I talk to you?" Tyler asked from the doorway. Dennis looked up, reading glasses perched on his nose. "Come in, coffee?" "No thanks." Tyler sat down at the small table. "I wanted to ask you something. About Mr. Mitchell." Dennis set his mug down and gave Tyler his full attention. "All right. You said he could have made our lives difficult, could have gotten us fired, but he didn't." Tyler's hands fidgeted with his security badge. "Why not? I mean, we deserved it." Dennis leaned back in his chair, considering the question. "You ever heard the saying that strength is knowing you could destroy someone but choosing not to?" Tyler nodded. Robert Mitchell has spent his whole life protecting people, even when those people didn't deserve it, even when they made his job harder. Dennis took a sip of his coffee. "Men like him don't need revenge. They don't need to prove they're better than you. They already know who they are." "I don't know how to be like that," Tyler admitted quietly. "Nobody does at first," Dennis said. "It comes from experience. From making mistakes and learning from them. The question is, are you going to learn from this?" Before Tyler could answer, Brandon appeared in the doorway. "Dennis, there's someone here to see you. Says his name is Robert Mitchell." Tyler's stomach dropped. Dennis stood up immediately, grabbing his coffee. "Where is he?" "At the front desk." All three of them walked out to the lobby. Robert was standing there in jeans and a flannel shirt, looking more relaxed than he had on Tuesday. "He was holding a cardboard box, Mr. Mitchell," Dennis said, extending his hand. "This is a surprise." Robert shook his hand firmly. "Hope I'm not interrupting." "I wanted to drop something off." "Not at all. What can we do for you?" Robert set the box on the security desk. "My daughter told me you train new security guards here. Thought these might be useful." He opened the box, revealing about a dozen books. Security protocols, crisis management, threat assessment guides. Some of them looked old but well-maintained. "These are from my personal collection," Robert explained. "Use them when I was teaching. Figure they might help your team more than they helped me collecting dust in my garage." Dennis picked up one of the books, flipping through it. The margins were filled with handwritten notes, practical observations, real-world examples. "Mr. Mitchell, these are valuable." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Robert glanced at Tyler and Brandon, who were standing a few feet away. "Besides, I think your team could benefit from them." Tyler stepped forward. "Mr. Mitchell, can I ask you something?" Robert turned to face him. "Go ahead. Why are you being nice to us?" "After what we did?" Robert was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "You want the honest answer?" "Yes, sir. Because staying angry doesn't help anyone. You made a mistake. You owned it. You apologized. That takes character." Robert picked up one of the books from the box and handed it to Tyler. "But more importantly, I remember what it was like to be young and think I knew everything. I made plenty of mistakes too." Brandon joined them at the desk. "You? I can't imagine you making mistakes like we did." Robert actually laughed at that. "Oh, I made worse. When I was about your age, maybe 24, I was stationed in California. There was this older gentleman who came onto the base sometimes to visit his son. Always wore civilian clothes, kind of shabby. I stopped him one day, gave him a hard time about his visitor pass. "What happened?" Tyler asked. Turned out he was a retired colonel. Had served in Vietnam, Korea. Seen more combat than I'd ever see. My commanding officer found out how I'd treated him and made me run laps until I threw up. Then he made me write a formal apology letter. Robert smiled at the memory. But you know what the colonel did when he got that letter? What? He came to find me. Bought me a beer. Even though I was still technically too young to drink. Spent 3 hours telling me stories about his service. Teaching me things they didn't cover in basic training. He said everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst moment. Dennis was smiling now. Sounds like a good man. He was. Died about 10 years ago. But I never forgot what he taught me that day. Robert looked at both young guards. So that's why I'm here. Not because I'm trying to be some kind of saint, but because someone gave me a second chance once and I'd be a hypocrite not to do the same. Tyler felt something loosen in his chest. The guilt that had been sitting there for 3 days didn't disappear, but it felt different somehow, less like a weight and more like a lesson. Thank you, Brandon said, for the books, and for not holding it against us. You're welcome. Robert checked his watch. I should get going. My daughter's meeting me for breakfast. Before you go, Dennis said, Victoria Chen, the regional manager, she's serious about that consulting offer. We could really use someone with your experience to help train the team. Even just a few hours a month, Robert considered it. Maybe let me think about it. As Robert headed toward the door, Tyler called out, Mr. Mitchell. Robert turned back. Would you be willing to teach us? I mean, really teach us. Not just about security procedures, but about how to do this job the right way. Robert studied them both for a long moment. You really want to learn? Yes, sir, they said in unison. All right. I'll talk to Dennis about setting something up, but I have one condition. Anything, Brandon said. You have to promise me you'll pass it on. When you're older, when you're the experienced ones, you treat the young guards the way you wish you'd been treated. You teach them. You give them chances to be better. Deal? Tyler extended his hand. Deal. They shook on it and Robert left with a wave. As the glass doors closed behind him, Dennis turned to the 2 younger guards. You know what just happened there? He asked. What? Tyler said. You just got a second chance from one of the best men I've ever met. Don't waste it. Over the next few weeks, Robert came by the building twice a week. He didn't lecture or talk down to anyone. Instead, he shared stories, practical advice, real situations he'd encountered. He taught them how to read body language, how to de-escalate tense situations, how to maintain authority while showing respect. But more than that, he taught them about people, how everyone carries invisible burdens, how you never know what someone's going through just by looking at them, how the tired man in old clothes might have been up all night taking care of a sick wife, how the nervous teenager might be going to her first job interview, how the angry businessman might have just gotten devastating news. Tyler and Brandon started seeing their job differently. They began greeting people by name when they recognized them. They smiled more. They helped an elderly woman carry her groceries to her car. They called a taxi for a man who'd missed his bus. One afternoon, a homeless man wandered into the lobby, clearly confused and looking for shelter from the rain. The old Tyler would have escorted him out immediately, maybe not too gently. Instead, Tyler walked over calmly. Hey there, buddy. You doing okay? The man looked frightened. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get dry for a minute. That's all right. Listen, there's a community center 3 blocks north of here. They've got hot coffee and a warm place to sit. Want me to call them and let them know you're coming? The man's eyes filled with tears. You'd do that? Of course. Let me get you their address written down too. After the man left, happily clutching the address and directions, Brandon walked over to Tyler. You know, Robert would have been proud of that. Tyler smiled. Yeah, I think he would have. That evening, as Tyler was getting ready to leave his shift, he saw Robert in the lobby talking to Dennis. Robert caught his eye and gave him a small nod. Nothing dramatic, just a simple acknowledgement. But Tyler understood what it meant. It meant he was learning. It meant he was becoming the kind of guard, the kind of man that people could trust. It meant he was getting it right. As Tyler walked to his car that night, he thought about the path he'd been on 3 weeks ago, the cockiness, the judgments, the casual cruelty disguised as doing his job. He thought about who he'd been and who he was becoming. And he realized that sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having someone show you exactly who you don't want to be, and then giving you the tools to become something better. Robert Mitchell had given him that gift, and Tyler wasn't going to waste it. 6 months had passed since that rainy Tuesday afternoon when Robert Mitchell first walked through the lobby doors. The building looked the same, but something fundamental had changed in the way security operated on the ground floor. Tyler was at the desk when an older woman approached, struggling with 2 heavy shopping bags and a cane. She looked exhausted, her clothes worn but clean, her gray hair pulled back in a simple bun. "Excuse me," she said hesitantly. "I'm here to see my grandson. He works in accounting, but I can't remember which floor that is." Tyler came around from behind the desk immediately. "Let me help you with those bags, ma'am. Accounting is on the 12th floor. What's your grandson's name?" "Michael Torres. I probably should have called first, but my phone died on the bus." She looked worried. "Is that going to be a problem?" "Not at all. Let me call up to accounting and let them know you're here." Tyler set her bags down gently and pulled out a chair for her. "Please have a seat while I sort this out. Can I get you some water?" The woman's eyes filled with relief. "That would be wonderful. Thank you so much." As Tyler made the call and Brandon brought over a bottle of water, Robert walked into the lobby. He'd been coming by regularly now, sometimes to help with training, sometimes just to have lunch with Jennifer. He noticed the woman in the chair, noticed the way Tyler was handling the situation, and smiled to himself. A few minutes later, a young man in his 20s rushed out of the elevator, his face lighting up when he saw the older woman. "Grandma, what are you doing here?" "Surprise," she said, standing up with some effort. "I made you that pozole you love so much. Thought I'd bring it while it was still warm." The young man hugged her, then turned to Tyler. "Thank you for taking care of my grandmother." "Of course," Tyler said. "You've got a special lady here." After they left, Robert approached the security desk. "Good work with that woman." Tyler looked surprised to see him. "Mr. Mitchell, didn't know you were coming by today. Just meeting Jennifer for lunch. But I saw how you handled that situation. You made her feel safe and welcome. That's what good security looks like." Brandon joined them, clapping Tyler on the shoulder. "He's been like this for months now. Actually pays attention to people." "We both have," Tyler corrected. "You were the one who helped that kid find his mom last week when she got lost in the building." Robert listened to them talk, seeing how much they'd changed. They stood differently now, carried themselves with quiet confidence instead of bravado. They smiled at people passing through, remembered names, asked about someone's sick parent or new baby. "You know," Robert said, "when I first met you two, I wasn't sure you'd get it, but you proved me wrong. You gave us a chance," Brandon said. "Most people wouldn't have done that." "Most people don't understand that everyone's fighting battles we can't see," Robert replied. "That woman with the shopping bags? Maybe she's struggling financially but still wanted to do something nice for her grandson. Maybe she's lonely, and that pozole is her way of staying connected. We don't know everyone's story, but we can treat them like their story matters." Dennis emerged from his office with a younger woman in a security uniform. She couldn't have been more than 22, with nervous eyes and stiff posture. "Robert, perfect timing," Dennis said. "This is Amy Chen, our newest team member. Today's her first day. I was hoping you might say a few words to her." Robert extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Amy." She shook his hand, clearly uncertain who he was, but recognizing that everyone else seemed to respect him. "Thank you, sir." "First day jitters?" Robert asked kindly. Yes, sir. I just graduated from college. This is my first real job in security. Can I tell you something I wish someone had told me on my first day?" Robert pulled up a chair and Amy sat down, followed by Tyler and Brandon gathering around. "Security isn't about being tough or intimidating people," Robert began. "It's about making people feel safe. There's a big difference. Anyone can be scary. But making someone feel genuinely safe and protected, that takes skill and heart," Amy nodded, listening intently. "You're going to meet all kinds of people walking through those doors," Robert continued. "Rich people, poor people, happy people, struggling people. Some will be kind to you, some won't. Some will make your job easy, others will test your patience. But every single one of them deserves to be treated with dignity." "What if someone's being difficult?" Amy asked. "How do you stay calm?" Tyler jumped in before Robert could answer. "Mr. Mitchell taught us something important about that. When someone's being difficult, there's usually a reason. Maybe they're stressed, scared, or going through something tough. It's not about you." "Exactly," Robert said. "I once dealt with a man at a military checkpoint who was yelling and refusing to follow protocols. Turned out his wife was in labor at the hospital on base, and he was terrified he'd miss the birth. Once I understood what was happening, I could help him instead of just fighting with him. What did you do? Amy asked. Got him through security fast and had someone escort him to the hospital. His daughter was born 20 minutes later. He sent me a thank you card with her picture every year for the next 15 years. Brandon smiled. See, that's the kind of thing he teaches us. It's not in any manual, but it's what makes the difference between just doing a job and actually helping people. Jennifer appeared from the elevator, waving at her father. Robert stood up, preparing to leave for lunch. One more thing, Amy, he said. In 6 months, maybe a year, you're going to have a bad day. Someone's going to be rude to you, or you're going to be tired and frustrated. And you might be tempted to take it out on whoever's standing in front of you. When that happens, remember this conversation. Remember that how you treat people says everything about who you are and nothing about who they are. I will, sir. Thank you. As Robert walked toward Jennifer, Tyler called out, Hey, Mr. Mitchell. We're having a barbecue next weekend for the security team. You should come. Bring Jennifer. Robert smiled. We'll be there. Later that evening, Tyler was finishing his shift when a man in an expensive suit approached the desk. He was on his phone, clearly agitated about something. I need to get upstairs now, the man said without looking up from his phone. I'm late for a meeting. Of course, sir. I just need to see your ID and… I don't have time for this, the man snapped. Do you know who I am? I'm a consultant working with your CEO. This is ridiculous. 6 months ago, Tyler would have gotten defensive, would have made the process take longer, just to assert his authority. But now he saw something different. He saw a stressed person, probably dealing with pressure Tyler couldn't imagine. I understand you're in a hurry, sir, Tyler said calmly. Let me expedite this for you. If you can just show me your ID, I'll get you a visitor badge and call up to let them know you're on your way. Should take less than a minute. The man finally looked up from his phone, surprised by the response. He handed over his ID, and true to his word, Tyler had him processed and ready in 45 seconds. Thank you, the man said, his tone softer now. And I'm sorry for being short with you. Rough day. No problem at all, sir. Hope your meeting goes well. As the man walked toward the elevator, he turned back. You're good at your job. Not many people stay professional when someone's being a jerk. After he left, Brandon walked over. Handled that perfectly. Robert would be proud. You know what's crazy? Tyler said. 6 months ago, I would have made that guy's day worse just because I could. Now I can't imagine doing that to anyone. That's growth, man, Brandon said. That's what Robert gave us. He showed us that being powerful isn't about controlling people. It's about having power and choosing to use it to help instead of hurt. Amy, who had been observing from nearby, approached them.
Can I ask you guys something?
Sure, Tyler said. Mr. Mitchell, he's not even your boss or anything, right? So why do you listen to him? Why does everyone respect him so much? Tyler thought about it for a moment. Because he earned it the hard way. He spent his whole life serving people, protecting people, putting himself in danger for others. And even after all that, even after everything he's done, he's the most humble person I've ever met. He never demands respect. He doesn't need to. People just naturally want to be better when they're around him. Plus, Brandon added, he sees the best in people, even when they don't see it in themselves. When we messed up with him that first day, he could have destroyed us. Instead, he taught us. That's real strength, Amy nodded slowly, understanding. I hope I can be like that someday. You will be, Tyler assured her. Just remember what he said. Treat everyone with dignity. Make people feel safe. The rest will follow. As the evening shift continued, the lobby filled with people heading home from work. Tyler and Brandon greeted each one, held doors, helped with packages, answered questions with patience and kindness. And Amy watched and learned, seeing what security could be when done with heart. Upstairs, Robert and Jennifer finished their lunch in the conference room. Through the window, they could see the city spreading out below, thousands of people living their lives, fighting their battles, carrying their stories. You've made a real difference here, Dad, Jennifer said. Those guards, they're completely different people now. Robert shrugged. They did the work. I just pointed them in the right direction. That's what you…